All right, so we're gonna jump into some English A stuff, English A and then English B. We're looking at the mark allocation and exam format. So this is the part where we get some clarity, or at least a reminder, in terms of how many marks for paper A, for paper one, how many for paper two, stuff like that. We're just gonna do a little breakdown of the papers. All right, so there are three components to English A. And this format here applies if you're not a private candidate, which would be most of you guys here on stream. So if you're a regular student in high school, then you're not a private candidate, right? So the three components would be paper one, paper two, and the SBA. These three elements will make up your English A score or English A grade. The paper one, that's 29% of your total score, and that would be 60 MCQ, 60 multiple choice questions. And you do that within 1 hour and 30 minutes. Paper two, this is the bread and butter. Paper two is 50% of your total score, and that's continuous prose, which means not short answer, not multiple choice, but long form writing. We're talking essays, we're talking stories, we're talking letters, emails, stuff like that. That's 2 hours, 40 minutes, and that's 50% of your overall grade, right? The SBA is 21% of your overall grade, and that's a research project. And by the way, guys, you can take screenshots if you're finding that some of these slides are particularly valuable. And for the students who are actually in my classes and the teachers in the Master Teacher Club, you have access to all of these presentations that I make. And this is if you're a private candidate. The only difference here is that instead of the SBA, you'll be doing paper three, which is 21% of your total score. And it's basically short answer questions. You have 2 hours to do that paper. Yeah. Whether it's paper three or the SBA, it's basically 3 marks. The paper three is pretty easy, much easier than papers one and two, much more predictable. And the SBA, it's not easy, but you have a lot of time to get it done. You can make revisions, so you can basically ensure that you're maximizing the marks. Yeah. All right, so let's get into it. The English A paper one. All right, I want to break this down for you guys so you know what you're looking forward to in terms of the exams. This paper consists of 60 compulsory multiple choice questions arranged into 2 sections. English A paper 1, the paper is arranged into 2 sections. Section 1, 25 discrete items. Section 2, 35 reading comprehension items. I'm going to get into these 2 sections of the English A paper 1. What do we mean by discrete items? What do we mean by reading comprehension items? So the discrete items, this is where you'll have questions on stuff like synonyms, antonyms, your error recognition, equivalent sentences, sentence completion, spelling, construction shift. These more grammar kind of questions, these are the 25 discrete items. So almost half of the paper is just grammar stuff, diction stuff, word choice stuff, right? So that's 25 questions. We call these the discrete items. And then you're going to have 35 comprehension items divided in this manner: 1 poem, 1 literary extract. So the literary extract could be any piece of literature, or any extract from any piece of literature, from any genre. 1 expository extract. So maybe like something from an article or a letter to the editor, something like that. 1 argumentative extract and 1 visual extract. The visual extract would be like an ad or some campaign thing or a brochure page, something like that. So the 35 comprehension questions will be on these types of texts, right? So we have the discrete items, 25 questions. Then we have the comprehension items, 35 questions. All right. What about the paper 2? English A paper 2. We have 4 sections. We see the mark allocations here: 25 marks, 30 marks, 25 marks, 25 marks. Let's look very briefly at what the SBA is all about. And I think you're working on the SBAs already, so you should know all of this stuff. Just a reminder. A single SBA will be required to complete both aspects of the English syllabus: English A and English B, just 1 SBA. So if you're doing just English A or just English B, or both A and B, you're still going to be doing just 1 SBA, right? So you wouldn't be doing 1 SBA for English A and 1 for English B, right? Just 1 SBA. And of course, there are 2 kind of elements to the SBA marks. You have the individual stuff and the group stuff. You're going to do some parts as an individual, and you're going to do some things in a group where you have, different group members sharing a general topic. I'm not going into the SBA now. I'm just looking at an overview of all the English A stuff, right? So the English A SBA, all right, yeah, skip over that for now. And we have the SBA portfolio components, plan of investigation, participation measure, indicators of group activity. That's referring to like the 3 artifacts that you'll need to include: your reflection or your 3 reflections, written report, oral presentation. Right, we're not going into each of these, just giving you an overview. Well, yeah, I have slides on each of these, but I won't. I don't think I should delve into this. I might have to do a live where I just look at the SBA in more detail. So the plan of investigation, participation measure, indicators of group activity. I'm just going to skip over these. Reflection. And all of this information is actually in the syllabus. I just made the information a little bit prettier. That's all I did. All right. And the paper 3 for private candidates. So private candidates are required to write paper 3, or sometimes we say 032, which is an alternative to the SBA. So you will not be doing the SBA if you're a private candidate. Instead, you'll be doing paper 3. But paper 3 will actually be assessing kind of the same skills that the SBA is addressing. So the paper will consist of a guided critique of 3 pieces of stimulus material. You'll get an excerpt from a recent newspaper. You'll get a cartoon strip or lyrics to a song, and you'll get a poem, story, or public speech. You're going to get these 3 pieces of text, and you will have to basically critique or analyze these 3 pieces of text. The 3 pieces of text will be on the same topic. All right, so let's look a little bit deeper at the paper. You will have to answer 3 compulsory questions, right, on this paper, each worth 15 marks. 2 questions will be short answer responses, and 1 is going to be a composition. So you're going to have to create a piece of, you're going to have to create a thing, maybe a poem, a song, something like that. And marks will be awarded for content, organization, all that fancy stuff. But let's take a look at an actual paper. Let's take a look at paper 3 to see what we're dealing with. So those who are not private candidates, just bear with us. I want to touch on the paper 3 a little bit. And there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of information on paper 3 floating around. So maybe I can add a little bit of clarity on that. All right, let's see. Okay, so yeah, candidates will be required to respond to questions on these 3 things. So all of the questions that you'll be answering on paper 3, the questions will be related to issues raised in the stimulus, right? What are the issues? Something to do with, I don't know, poverty, truancy at school, skin bleaching, social media use. There's going to be one issue, one topical thing that's relevant to society now. And all of the questions, all of the stimuli will be on that issue, right? Possibly impact on the intended audience. You have to be able to talk about how this speech or this poem or this cartoon strip would impact the audience that reads it or sees it. And you'll have to be able to comment on the language techniques used. So this is the paper 3. We're looking at paper 3. This is what it looks like. I'm going to go quickly because maybe I'll have to go into paper 3, in a different live stream. So here's a text, a newspaper article. That's one of the texts. Here's another text, a cartoon, and here's another text, a poem. So you're going to get 3 texts, 3 pieces of literature, all connected to the same topic, right? And this is section 1. Or question 1. Question 1 has several parts, short answer questions, stuff like outline the main idea or issue present in each of the 3 passages. And you do that, you look at the passages and answer the questions based on the passages. And you're going to choose one, talk about the appropriateness of text. And you have these kinds of questions. Talk about language techniques used. Yeah. The writing is pretty small here, but basically you're analyzing these 3 texts on the type of language techniques used, how appropriate the texts are, stuff like that. For question 2, for the private candidates doing paper 3, candidates will be required to respond to questions about an oral presentation. So remember, paper 3 is trying to cover the same skill set as the SBA. In the SBA, you will have to actually do an oral presentation. But for private candidates, you will not be doing an oral presentation, but you will be writing about an oral presentation. So, just like the people doing the SBA in school, you have to research and be aware of different features and techniques related to oral speech, oral presentation. And here are some kinds of questions that you might get. In making a presentation, it is important to consider the composition of the audience. Explain 3 other factors which a speaker must consider when making an oral presentation. So you're going to get some questions that relate to like the techniques and all that stuff of, doing an oral presentation. So yeah, private candidates, you have not escaped the oral presentation stuff. You're not going to be doing a presentation, but you still have to understand what a presentation of that nature entails. And for your final question, you're going to be creating something pretty interesting. So candidates will select one of the issues or situations raised in the stimulus and create a personal response to it. The response can take the form of drama, poetry, prose, lyrics to a song, stuff like that. And here's an example, blah, 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 blah. Your response will be assessed for these things. You can take a screenshot and check it out later. So yeah, private candidates, take note. So just to wrap up the English A format, and this is a screenshot I grabbed directly from the syllabus itself. This is how your marks are allocated. Paper 1, 60 questions, 29% of your overall grade, right? 29% of your overall grade. And then paper 2, section A is 12%, section B is 14, section C is 12, section D is 12. Combined, paper 2 is 50%, a half of all of your English A grade. And then the SBA or the paper 3, depending on whether or not you're a private candidate, will be 21. Now what's interesting is we talked about the understanding and the expression skills earlier, and these would be represented in profile 1, understanding, and profile 2, expression. So profile 1, looking at paper 1, there are no marks for expression, but we have 60 marks for understanding. I want one bright student to tell me why in the chat. Why 60 marks out of 60 for profile 1, understanding, but nothing for expression in paper 1? Let me see if you guys are following. Yes, that's it. That's pretty much it. There are no writing tasks. You will not be writing any essays, any stories, anything like that. So CSEC will not be able to test your writing ability on multiple choice, right? It makes sense. It's just common sense. You will only be showing how well you're able to understand. Section B, in which you're going to be tackling an expository question, we see that it's 10 marks for understanding, 20 marks for expression. So this is basically like the skill sets or the weight of each skill set or skill type when it comes to each question. So you need to have good understanding, but you need to have great expression for the question B. What about section C? Section C is the story. It's really about expression because you're writing a story. So understanding doesn't really come into play here because you are the one generating the ideas. You are the one expressing your thoughts. So section C isn't about understanding a piece of text. It's about creating it. It's about expressing yourself. So when you're looking at these kinds of tables on the syllabi, they'll inform us about what kind of skills we need to attack each section of the paper. Section D, in which you write an argumentative task, argumentative or a persuasive essay. This is about expression because you are the one generating the content. So looking back at sections A and B, we see that there is some amount of understanding needed here. For section A, that's summary writing, right? You need to show some understanding, and you're going to show the understanding basically by listing the 5 main points of the passage. The rest of it is all up to how well you are able to create that summary, which is expression 20. Yeah, 5 for understanding, 20 for expression. And the section B, you're going to need to show some understanding because you will be given like a situation. You'll be given some information that you will need to organize and express. So you first have to understand it before you express it. While in the last 2 sections, it's not about understanding at all. It's all about expression. No, what does this tell you? So 75 marks or 36% of the total marks are from understanding, while 64% of the total marks are from expression, the expression skills. What does this say? This says CSEC cares more about how well you write than about how well you read. It's about how well are you able to express and communicate clearly and effectively? That's what CSEC values, right? So it means even if you can think about good story ideas, even if you have lots of good points for your essay, if you're not able to structure paragraphs fluidly, if you're not able to show the different writing techniques, you cannot pass.